J-Tech Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Bastek and Mike Jacobs.
Hello and welcome in. It is the Game Show Guys here on America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. We are on episode number 8 this week. Michael Jacobs, I am Tom Bastek. How are you?
Hello, Tom Bastek. I am Michael Jacobs. I am wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I had a great week. Really excited. We got a lot of fantastic feedback on Beth Maluski and Cash Cab.
Yeah, absolutely. People are loving it.
Yeah, I'm glad that everybody wanted to tune in. We do have a couple of housekeeping notes to get to up front, and then we're going to get right into the news with Christian.
Yeah, well, we got an interesting email the other day that talked about our inaugural episode's debate on what makes a game show. And they brought up a term that I think helps me delineate that line I was trying to draw before. But they brought up the term game opera. I forgot the name of the person who they wanted us to credit it to.
It's okay because I'm going to give credit to both people. I want to make sure that when we get feedback from folks that we give it properly. Brian in Connecticut was the one that wrote in, and he's giving credit to a guy named Stu Shostak. That's Shostak.
There you go. But yeah, they combined the ideas of a game show and a soap opera, which I think is the perfect sort of explanation that I was trying to come up with. You know, like Survivor, it is just as much a soap opera as it is a game show. And I love the portmanteau of game opera.
I'm not a big fan. I'm just saying I don't like it. Now, hey, here's the thing. If you want to call it anything but a game show, that's on you. To me, it's still a game show. The overall, it's like when you're looking at class, genus, species, all that. Okay.
Sure. Uh-huh.
The overall term for this is game show. You want to have game opera underneath that? I'm on board.
You're saying it's a subcategory, not a equal category.
Correct.
Gotcha. Well, I think what this conversation really illustrates, though, is that we are not experts.
Oh, heck no. By the way, at any time, if we claim to be experts, which I know we haven't,
no,
you can call us out on the rug, but we've never claimed to be experts here.
No, well, but to that end, we're always looking for, things we've missed or gotten wrong. People have not shied away from letting us know that. So please do let us know. I'm very interested in the concept of collecting these tidbits of things we missed specifically or got wrong and doing a whole episode of like, hey, let's go back and revisit some shows and here's some interesting stuff we missed. So we're always looking for this kind of stuff. We love it.
I'm going to do it with a caveat, though. Now, one of the things that Brian said when he wrote in is he said, you guys can fact check me before we put any of this out on the air. That's great. I'm going to tell you, if you guys are going to write in and you're going to tell us what we did wrong or what we missed, I'm putting the fact-checking back on you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I don't have time to go through 400 emails.
I do have a day job.
Yeah, guys, we're doing this for fun at the end of the day. So please, if you write in and we did miss something, or Lord knows if we got something wrong, we are all about making the correction, but give us the proof when you do it. That's 100%. All we ask.
I agree.
Did we hit everything in our housekeeping there?
Yeah, I believe that's it. I'm ready to jump into news if we got Christian here.
He is ready to rock and roll. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him in.
Light up your cigarette, crack open a beer, put the kiddos to bed. From chaos around the world to carnage in your very own front yard, it's time for the news.
This is the news brought to you by BuzzerBlog.com. I'm Christian Carrion, as usual. Taskmaster, the hit UK...
Wait a second. As usual, and then there was this little... Huh. What was that?
All right, let's take it again.
No. We're going to please keep right on going.
All right, beautiful. Taskmaster, the hit UK comedy game show, is coming to America, part of an effort to make up for lost programming due to the coronavirus pandemic. The CW has imported the series all the way from England and will air the show's 2 most recent seasons, or series as they call them, on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern beginning in August. The show is co-hosted by comedian and creator Alex Horn and comedian comedian/taskmaster Greg Davies, and sees comedians and other celebrities competing against each other in esoteric tasks to gain points. Taskmaster has been a hit in several countries. Belgium, Sweden, Norway, Finland, New Zealand, Germany all have their own versions of the show. And this isn't the first time Taskmaster has been tried in America. Comedy Central tried it a couple years ago, a localized version with Reggie Watts as the Taskmaster. But I'm a huge fan of this show. That's one of my all-time favorite foreign shows, and I'm excited for a lot of other people to finally get to see what it's all about. It's just such a fun show.
I only watched the very first segment, Christian, so far, and I cannot wait to see the rest. I'm super excited.
I'm excited for you to see the second season. The potato throwing task in season 2 is provides one of the best moments of TV I have seen in so long. I'm so excited for you to get into it.
All right, great.
Speaking of Sunday nights, that's when you'll catch 2 of ABC's newest offerings starting this fall. Supermarket Sweep, hosted by Leslie Jones, will air at 8 p.m. on Sundays, followed by Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, hosted by Jimmy Kimmel, which returns to the network for a second season. No word on whether the new season of Millionaire will again feature civilian contestants or a live audience, 2 elements that were missing from the highly rated season 1. I thought they did a great job, all things considered. They returned to the classic format. I'm always more of a fan of seeing regular people play as opposed to celebrities, but I thought they did a great job. The set was awesome, and I thought Jimmy did a great job as host.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, given the situation, you got to work with what you got. I think that they did as best they could. I don't think you could ask for anything better than what came out of
Mike, you got to be happy. Crystal is now going to be excited. Supermarket Sweep is coming back, baby.
I know, and we're using this as an excuse to keep pushing it as a featured show. I'm telling you, it's going to be a good one.
It's coming up soon. 2 weeks away, in fact.
All right.
And NBC has ordered 6 episodes of the UK game show Small Fortune. The format, which premiered on UK's ITV network back in February, is billed as the world's smallest game show. Small Fortune sees teams of players compete in tiny challenges for a chance to win big money. Each team must prove their skills on playing fields that have been squeezed down to the size of a dollhouse, from a shrunken Oval Office to a miniature pub. And that's the clip that I saw. They had to fill a pint of beer and slide it down the bar, but the bar is impossibly tiny, and they're using tweezers to pour the beer into the mug and slide it down. Really high-pressure television. I'm interested to see how this is going to go in America. It's a very bizarre show.
Yeah, what a unique concept. I love it. I can't wait to see that one.
Nice to see some unique and different stuff happening.
I think so, especially around now when, there are so few new opportunities for programming with everything going on in the world. I'm excited that they're trying something different.
Yeah,
awesome.
sure.
Awesome. What else you got, buddy?
And finally, this week in game show history, ABC aired the final episode of one of my personal favorite hard quiz shows, Split Second, hosted in the 70s by Tom Kennedy, later in the 80s by the producer of the show, Monty Hall, which a lot of people know from Let's Make a Deal. You guys were not a fan of the show.
Well, I wasn't. I mean, Mike, were you?
Well, so here was the way I thought about it was I really liked the game aspect of it. Like, I thought it was really clever and it's like very heady. But the actual show, the production and all that, it left a lot to be desired. I think it would be like a fun game to play, like, just hanging out in a pool with your buddies or whatever. But as a game show, no thanks.
So I have a question and a statement. The first question is, Christian, I know you've hosted this game before during your 24-hour game show marathon that you do. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's one of my favorite shows to host because it's so fast, and I love the fast.
Did you write the programming for your version of that? How did you get that version that you were playing online there?
I did not write it. I have a buddy named Corey Anatato, who's one of my partners in BuzzerBlog, actually the founder of BuzzerBlog.
Nice.
He is a tech wizard, and we do this event. We do 24 different game shows for 24 hours. This has been we've been doing that for about 8 or 9 years now, and he programs the vast majority of the software that we use, and he draws everything himself. He programs everything himself. He is an absolute genius. So he was responsible for that software.
Tell him he did a great job because yours is more beautiful than what we saw on the show.
Well, and that's the thing about TV back in those days. First of all, the last episode aired in the mid-70s, 1975. And when this show ended, that was the end of that type of show for a long time. A lot of game shows, until Jeopardy came back in the mid-80s, focused on cute little puzzles and word play and and celebrity personality type games. So that was the end of that type of show. But back then, you could take a few acres of orange carpet and some stucco and some glitter, slap it on some plywood, and that was the set for your game show. Like this show, as rinky-dink as it looked, which it shows, you can tell how cheap the show was produced, with the exception of the 5 cars that they gave away every day. That lasted for 3 years. So it was really an example of the game outshining the show, which is, I think, how Mike put it earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll throw it up on the maybe the Facebook. We'll definitely throw it on the website of your version, and we'll throw up like the first episode or whatever as well, so people can get a feeling of what it is and what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, definite. In my opinion, underrated show, but I understand the mixed feelings about it because it is definitely not the prettiest example of game shows.
I would certainly like to play it. That's for sure.
I love it. All right. Now our game this week, we're doing our featured show, is Match Game. And I know you have a very personal attachment to this.
I do. Other than growing up watching the reruns on Game Show Network, which a lot of people in my generation did, it found a whole new audience once Game Show Network became a thing in the 90s. Match Game was the show that put me and my wife out of credit card debt last year. Thanks to Alec Baldwin and Mario Cantone of Sex and the City.
Nice.
That was the most recent show I was a contestant on. I had a great time. Everybody was awesome.
What was your final 1-to-1 match?
So the super match, I matched with Mario Cantone. It was blank pad, and I said iPad, and that happened to be the answer that the audience gave most frequently. And then the last head-to-head for $25,000 was tug blank. And my immediate thought was tug of war, but his immediate thought was tugboat. And I feel like those are probably the two. Yeah, I almost wanted to go for the YouTube money and say tug job, but I decided against that. I'm not going to say that. I almost made a long-term investment in our future by saying that, but
well, and there you go. All right, how about a quick plug for Buzzer Blog, my friend?
Of course, buzzerblog.com, the #1 game show website in the world for industry insiders, game show aficionados, casual viewers, or people like you and me. Buzzerblog.com is the place to go for game show news, information, reviews, and thank you for all the people that have visited the site since we started this partnership. I think it's been a great thing for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that on and bringing in more listeners from your end.
Oh, that's my pleasure.
All right, Mike, I'm a little upset with his intro there. We kind of blew it off a little bit, but it was a little tough.
What do you mean?
He was like Christian Carrion, as usual.
Oh. Well, to me, it sounded like maybe he was some sort of shapeshifter, and he had to take a second to confirm that he was actually in Christian form before continuing.
You know what? I have a whole new respect for him now. He's doing a great job. I had no idea he was a shapeshifter.
Well, this is all conjecture. We haven't proved anything yet, but maybe, I have to imagine he's going to listen to this episode, so he'll be on to us. But if he doesn't listen to this episode, then we got to try and trick him into admitting it or something.
Yeah. Okay, great. Oh gosh. All right. Let's take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll get into the gameplay of our featured game this week, Match Game. You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. Hey gang, it's Mike and Tom from America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. And we want to talk to you a little bit today about how we got started with Anchor.fm.
Yeah, it's interesting with so many podcasts out there, it's not as easy to get started as you might think. And it was a pretty daunting task at first, but during my research, I came across Anchor.fm, and boy, I tell you, it seems like the perfect solution for getting started.
You said it best, Mike. They had a way to grow the podcast. We had the opportunity to put our podcast out there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the platforms, and then make money from the beginning with minimum listenership and then grow.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect platform to get everything done. They've got all the tools to edit and publish and all that kind of stuff right there, straight from your phone. Even if you don't even have a computer, you can do it. And we can start small, and we'll have features to help us every step of the way.
If you're looking to get things started on your own podcast, just download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get things started. number 2 of America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. This is the game show guys, Tom Bastic.
And Mike Jacobs. This week we are talking about Match Game. And the gameplay part of this should be pretty quick because, in my opinion, there's not much gameplay at all.
Oh, Mike, you've got to be fair during the show.
All right.
Afterwards, when we give our rating, you can crush it.
You're right. I'll be fair and objective. All right, well, hang on. Before we start, there are 2 sort of versions of the Match Game. There was the original one that ran in the 60s, and then it came back in the 70s. So the version I'm referring to is the popular one that we've seen in the 70s and survives to this day. We'll talk more about how the earlier one worked when we get there.
When we get to the history part?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
So, basically, Gene Rayburn, the host, will pitch you a question that has a blank in it somewhere. Or sometimes it was just like a silly, question, but they most of the time had some sort of double entendre, something that sounded saucy, and they really wanted you to think in your head the word that you weren't allowed to say on TV. So you wrote down what you thought to be funny or clever answer, but really what you're doing is guessing what you think someone else is gonna put. So it doesn't behoove you to be funny or clever on this show. It just behooves you to think of what these celebrities are going to say. So then one at a time, we go through the different celebrities and we see what they wrote down. And for each match, you get a point, I suppose. They light up your colored symbol on your podium to indicate a correct match. And this goes on for a few rounds. And whoever has the most matches at the end of this first round will go on to I forgot what they call the name of the second round, but it's basically just Family Feud, which, and I mean that quite literally. Family Feud is created as sort of a spin-off of Match Game with this.
Yeah, that's
show
what Christian was saying. That it was basically they interviewed a bunch of people and got a crowdsourced answer, and that's where Family Feud came from.
Yeah, exactly. They just sort of took that idea and expanded it for a larger show, which I'm on board with. Like, I think that is an idea that works well for a game show. So anyways, during that time, you earn money based on how high in the ranking your answer is, in the top 3 answers on the board, as it were, in Family Feud parlance. As you earn points over the course of this round, you're also banking money that you are then playing for in the final round, in which you simply pick one of these celebrity panelists, which almost always is Richard Dawson. He seems to be the one that gives the most common answers and is the easiest to match with. But if you match with that one celebrity on one single question on that final, you'll win the money that you have banked in that previous round. I believe it goes up to $10,000 in most versions. I'm sure it varies from time to time, but that's it. That's the end of the show. You win your money and congratulations. But the thing is, the contestants are not like, you could watch an episode and 15 minutes into it, forget who the contestants are already. The camera is on the panelists the whole time. It's just, I'm gonna, again, try and be fair, but.
Okay. So I'm not gonna rebut necessarily, but I'm gonna bring up a couple of things here, and I just want your opinion on them if you're cool with that.
Sure.
All right. First thing is this: these shows were created for what reason?
Entertainment.
Correct. And people who were at home or watching, with some shows, imagine themselves in the place of the contestant. Am I correct in saying so?
Yes.
And in certain shows, they just wanted to see the celebrities make fools of themselves.
Apparently. I realize that this is my incorrect interpretation or whatever, because obviously the show is incredibly popular. I'm wrong here.
Dude, it's so popular they're still doing it, which is kind of ridiculous because there is no gameplay. But the other thing is that literally, I did find myself playing along as I watched the episodes. I was yelling out what I thought the answer was, and it was interesting to see which celebrity I would have something in common with, especially watching the ones from the 70s, which is 50 years old now.
Right. Well, and it's interesting, they had a specific order to the way that they would lay the celebrities out.
Dude, I heard about this. This is amazing. Tell people about this. This is crazy.
So we'll say top left is 1, and then so the top row is 1, 2, 3. So top left at space 1 was always whatever big name celebrity they got on that week. It was never a regular. It was always it was someone maybe who would come back, but it was always, a bigger name celebrity who was on the show.
Right.
Then second in the the run was Brett Summers, who was on there forever. And it's interesting, if you watch one of the earlier episodes with her and one of the later episodes with her, like, she came to form over the course of that show. I'll just say that. So next to her was Charles Nelson Riley, who, if you ask me, is the real star of the show outside of the host, of course, Gene Rayburn.
Yeah,
I mean, he made the show.
He and Dawson were the two like amazing parts of the show, but he really is like the character.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Dawson to me isn't even necessarily an interesting character. He's just really good at the game. So I think
he would
that's
joke around, and then when it came time to win money, he was like, "Oh no, here we go. We're gonna win money."
Oh, he always had his fingers crossed. Like, he was always on the line to help the contestant. So yeah. Anyways, so that's 1, 2, and 3. 3 is Charles Nelson Riley. He was, again, the character, the silly guy, the kind of wacky out there answer. Going now to bottom left, space number 4. This was always what they referred to as the leading lady, often a blonde bimbo or brunette bimbo.
Yeah, also known as the dumb Dora character.
Yeah. They, wanted someone who was going to maybe give less informed answers.
Correct.
Yeah, make the show a little bit funnier. So then we have space 5, which is on the middle and the bottom, and that is Richard Dawson's seat. He is always there, and like I say, he's the brains of the operation, the one there to like really link up with the contestants and give the answers that they want to match. And then finally, they have the 6th seat, which everybody refers to as the worst one. It's kind of like wild card, like, sorry, like any funny answer has already been said. So you got to try to come up with something clever, which means no one's ever going to match you. It's just kind of like a dud, but you have to have it to end the pattern, as it were.
So the next thing I'm going to say, remember I said I had a couple of things. The second thing I'm going to say is that when it comes to those seating arrangements, I don't think it holds as much truth nowadays in the new version. And I feel that they're not so worried. The celebrities are really, honestly, not so worried about saying something funny. Every once in a while, I feel like, there's a little pressure for that. I feel like in the new one, they're way more concerned with getting these contestants their money. So they're like, I don't have anything funny to say. Here's my answer, kind of thing.
Gotcha. Well, so that indicates to me that they're amping up the game aspect of it a little more, which is good. Because I think that was one of the and again, I'm speaking mostly of the 70s version. That's the one I know. That's the one that I sort of researched for this episode. But to me, there was no incentive for these celebrities to help the contestants win. They all just wanted to be funny and have their moment on TV where they said something wacky. And that's why I think everybody picked Richard Dawson for the final round, because he was the only one that was like kind of serious business and took the game somewhat seriously and wanted the contestants to win. He wasn't just there to drink a bunch and do a bunch of coke and party, which is all that show is.
Well, yeah, we'll get to more of that in the history of it. But I also feel like this is a lot like Hollywood Squares. Hollywood Squares was really not about the contestants very much. It was really about the 9 celebrities they had in the squares. And in all of those, you were expected to come up with something funny every time. Like, they would ask you a question and the celebrity would have to have something funny. And if sometimes they didn't, and that'd just be, what it is. And they'd give a real answer. And you just have to believe him or not believe him, and that was how you got the square, kind of thing, Mm-hmm. To me, that really showcased the celebrities. I also feel like Match Game really showcases the celebrities. I will tell you that in the episodes that I watched of the new one with Alec Baldwin, and I watched one from this season, which was the first episode this season, they put a lot of the celebrities put a lot of emphasis on the selected contestant. So I felt like they were kind of more invested than they may have been. Now, they were still having a blast, and it was great to see celebrities have a blast. But between you and I, it's just kind of the same sort of thing as Hollywood Squares. And I'm a huge fan of Hollywood Squares, which is funny because I'm not a huge fan of Match Game necessarily, but I do see where its appeal is in terms of being great entertainment.
I'm not discounting the entertainment factor of this show. The celebrities are fun and funny to watch, and there's some good lines. Some of the questions are real eye rollers, but sometimes you get some clever answers. My beef with it is simply that as a game show, specifically the 70s version, there's no focus on the contestants. And if that's not true anymore, then I'm glad that the powers that be realized that and maybe hopefully intentionally made that shift to spotlight the contestants a little more. Because what is a game show other than something for the contestants, and the people at home want to be in that contestant seat, like you said.
No, I see, and then that's where you and I are going to disagree, because I don't think every game show is meant for the people in the audience to feel like they're the contestant on the show and excited to be the contestant on the show. I think that some are purely meant for entertainment purposes.
It's not then the show for the common man. It's the show for the celebrity to go have a party on TV.
It's also a show for that one person, that one contestant, to intermingle with 6 celebrities, which I also think is a lot of fun.
You're not wrong about that. You do get 6 celebrities and a lot of fun. And
Mike, if you took your favorite show, whatever it is, for me it would be Star Trek, The Next Generation, and you put 6 celebrities from Star Trek, The Next Generation there, I would give my left arm to be the contestant on the show.
Yeah. That's fair.
I think what it is that you're watching these shows in the 1970s and you don't have a lot of, you're like, who the hell were these people? You kind of maybe remember them from one little thing or whatever, but there's no starstruckness there.
Right.
So you're like, meh.
I mean, that's definitely true.
So when you can't relate to those people and you're not idolizing or starstrucking or whatever you're doing to those people, I don't necessarily idolize celebrities, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
There's not a big reason to do it.
Yeah, I mean, now that you kind of pitch it that way, I'm thinking of a panel of 6 celebrities where it's okay, if I were on that show, you could not even put me on TV and I would still be happy to be there.
There you go. Yeah. All right, let's take a break and get on with moving on to the history of the show.
Sounds good.
All right, you've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. Hey guys, and welcome back. It's segment number 3 of episode number 8. This week we are featuring the game show
Match Game, and we are specifically talking the history now. And to get to the genesis of Match Game, we got to go all the way back to December of 1962. That's when it first premiered. It was hosted by Gene Rayburn at the time, but it was a pretty different show. The way it worked back then is there were 2 teams of 3 people each, and they were given very, very mundane questions. Name a piece of farm equipment. Name a kind of apple. Name an instrument in a band. Very, very mundane questions. All 3 of them had to give an answer, and if they matched, they got points. Very few episodes of this exist, so I was kind of not sure exactly how all of this worked. It almost felt like some sort of medieval board game where there's no instructions and you're just kind of watching it like, what is this? I get the general idea, but what just happened there? And anyways.
Well, it's funny because it came out of a conference room.
A conference room?
Yeah, so check this out. Basically, during a corporate creative meeting they had in the early 60s, the Goodson Todman staffer by the name of Frank Wayne, he had an idea. He was like, all right, guys, here we go. Try this. He would say to his coworkers there, and he'd say, write down something about an elephant, and then try to write down the same thing that you think the others will. So they would all look around the room and figure out who was going to say trunk is long or whatever, or it's gray, or it's big. And so basically several different answers came up, but 2 people actually wrote, it has a trunk. That was the match. And Mark Goodson was intrigued by the concept of the game, and therefore there was really no right or wrong answers. Only matching answers scored points. Therefore, Match Game was born.
And I think that is a decent enough seed of a game show. But I think they just didn't flush it out well enough in this first go around because it got the old he-ho pretty quick. So what happened was, for the last few episodes, the question writer is a man by the name of Dick DiBartolo. He was also a writer for Mad Magazine, which if you go look up that name and you see his picture and you used to read Mad Magazine back in the day like I did, 70s and 80s and whatnot, and in the 90s, I'll admit it, you'll recognize his face. He's been, I don't know that his picture was necessarily in Mad, but he has been caricatured in there, and he's very recognizable. But yeah, he decided, why not just go crazy with these questions and write some really silly, wacky ones and suggestive ones. And they kind of just went to the wall with it. And Mark Goodson said, sure, because the quote was, they can't cancel us twice. And not only did they not cancel them twice, they in fact uncanceled them because it ended up being the exact right thing that show needed. They uncanceled it. The show skyrocketed, the ratings skyrocketed. And the show just took off and then ended up running until 69, a full 7 years. You know, it was pretty successful.
I've got two quick things for you. It's interesting, first of all. Have you ever you've seen the microphone that Mr. Bob Barker uses?
Yeah. A long, thin one. Yeah.
And it's actually changed over the years, but the original one that he used was a Sony ECM-51. But they were actually telescoping, the microphone was, and the first one to use it was actually Gene Rayburn back in the early 60s. He was the one that actually took out the patent for the microphone, and he owns that patent. And to buy one of those things, they cost about $800 on eBay right now. Because, yes, I went down that rabbit hole. Because I was like, I want one of those.
Well, so, okay, does that mean that he, invented it? How can he patent it?
He designed it himself and then patented it. But it was built for him by Sony, and it was given the model number ECM-51.
Wow. That's amazing.
Absolutely crazy. The second thing is that it's interesting because they did go kind of crazy in 68. So when it came back, and you're about to talk about that in 73, they had to be careful how crazy they went with it. So let's talk about 73, and then we'll get to that.
Yeah, well, so what happened was in 73, the Price is Right revival, as we talked about, it was originally an older show that they brought back and sort of revamped. It was so successful they were like, let's do this again. Let's take this old match game show. Let's, keep that spicy element that they had in there, but let's instead replace it with, a bunch of celebrity panelists and get the contestants to match with them instead of their own teams. And that was the real recipe for success of the show. And this was what I would consider the heyday of the show, and certainly what every version since has tried to aspire to.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's interesting because Goodson really was a pretty strict guy. He wanted his shows to be very on the up and up. And he came down on the folks in the 70s, making sure that people weren't saying things that were too far over the limit. For instance, you couldn't say urinate or pee. You could say tinkle.
Right. Was it make whoopee? Or you couldn't say anything about having sex or making love.
Sex, correct. As a matter of fact, at one point, Franny Flagg said the word genitalia. She wrote genitalia on the card. And director Ira Skutch came down and said, listen, you ever do something like that again, you're off the show. And she was a regular, on the show. It's just amazing how strict they really were for that time,
especially considering the raciness of the questions that they're asking. They're very clearly looking for these risque answers, but then to say you can't say any of these words is ridiculous.
Well, see that where the show has really progressed, and obviously we've progressed as a nation 50 years later. But sure. Christy Brinkley was on the current version and said that they were saying body parts and body functions are all good to go, and you can even draw little pictures and stuff, but let's try not to draw a cock and balls. Let's just say cock and balls. Her words, not mine.
Wow, it's amazing.
So the other thing they talked about, and I'm sure we kind of got into this. We kind of hit it a little bit. Was that they used to film this thing marathon style. So they would film 12 episodes in a row back in the 70s.
It wasn't 12 episodes in a row. They would do 12 in a weekend. I think it was 6 in a day.
You talked about them. It's like a cocaine-fueled frenzy.
Well, so, okay, here's the thing. Apparently there was dinner, quote unquote, between the first set of filming and the second set of filming. And nobody would say this outright, but to me, dinner sounded like some sort of code word for, let's maybe go do a bump or two behind the stage. Let's go have some dinner. But apparently, the way that they all tell it is that, everybody came back a little loose after dinner. So maybe it's just drinks. I don't know.
And who knows? But I mean, they definitely drank, and they definitely drank at lunch, and they definitely drank at dinner. So that was happening. Now, what's great is also to hear Christy Brinkley talk about it. Is on the new show, they have their own bartender and their own bar, and they're encouraged to drink up before the game, and they keep the drinks flowing the entire time.
Well, that's great as well, because that is really the spirit of this show, is that it is a party for the panelists more than anything else. This was the heyday of the show. This ran until 79, and during that time, they also had a spin-off Match Game PM, which ran from 75 to 81. That was when regular Match Game moved to a earlier slot. So they created Match Game PM. All of these still hosted by Gene Rayburn. He stayed on through the length of the show. But yeah, the Match Game ended in 79. Match Game PM ended in 81. There was a Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, like a crossover show. Interesting that you had brought up Hollywood Squares earlier. Yeah. Rayburn hosted the Match Game half of that. And I don't remember the guy's name, but someone from Sha Na Na was the host of the Hollywood Squares one.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Sorry.
Oh, you're good at that.
Dude, Sha Na Na was my jam. My mom and dad made me watch every episode of that.
Nice.
Love it. Go ahead.
So that ran for 83, 84. And then there were a couple attempts at reboots that were never really popular. And honestly, it makes sense because the 70s version had a certain chemistry, and it was, again, at a certain place in time. It was a thing that they were trying to recreate and just couldn't. You can't do it. And maybe you can now. Again, I have not watched the new one enough to really form an opinion. I love Alec Baldwin. By the way, the new, just for historical purposes, the new one started in 2016 with Alec Baldwin as the host on ABC, and that's what's still running to this day. And so, yeah, like I say, I love Alec Baldwin. I am a huge fan of his. I'm on board with him hosting a game show. I think that's a great choice. I'm sure he's hilarious, and I'm sure the contestants are having a great time. I need to give it a chance. But again, the appeal of the show is such a specific thing that I feel is exclusive to the 70s version. And I would be hard pressed to see it recreated again.
So it is what it is. I
think that is a great summary for this show. It is what it is.
Yeah, and you either like what it's bringing for entertainment or you don't. And that being said, it's now time for us, Michael, to pass judgment, at least our judgment anyway, on how we would rate this show. And I'm going to let you go first because you've been Captain Negative the entire time.
All right. Well, the game show host wanted to come up with a score system, so he decided on blank.
So I think we're going to use blanks.
Oh, all right. Blanks. Perfect. Blankety Blanks, which, by the way, is an international name for this show, which is like, wow, what a terrible name.
Yeah, I hear you. Go ahead.
Anyways, okay. I got to say 2. Again, it's fun to watch the celebrities party, but do I really care about watching celebrities party? That's what celebrities do, right? I want to party. I don't want to watch celebrities party. It is kind of fun, though. There's a humor to it. It's enjoyable. It has its place in time, I feel. I want to see if the new one can grab me. I don't think it will. But it's not a game. I mean, it is a game show. There's a game. But gosh, is it a weak concept for a game? And it's just, I'm a gamer, man. I want to see the games. And this is a boring game. I'm not a big fan. So 2 blanks out of 5.
All right. Well, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to say I enjoy this a lot. I believe that there is an appeal for what's out there. I mean, I think people want to see celebrities have a great time. I mean, that's part of it. So I'm going to give it 3.5 blanks. I may even give it 3.75 because it's so close. to the Hollywood squares that I love so much. And that may be because I come at things from the celebrity point of view as a celebrity. No, not as a celebrity. That's awful. But you know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is I'm going to give it 3.75 blanks because I feel like there's a lot of fun to be had. And I think that if you remember that game shows aren't necessarily about winning all the money as they are of just having a great time and the entertainment value, this is about a great time and entertainment value.
Well, agree to disagree, I suppose.
All right, there it is. And you know what, Mike? That's all the time we've got for this week.
All right, well, thanks, Tom, and a special thank you to Christian, folks at Buzzer Blog, and for everyone who takes the time to write to us.
Oh, yeah. Please tune in again next week when we'll bring you the latest and greatest in the world of game shows, as well as a brand new featured show, too.
And, of course, you can always catch us online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and, of course, tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
Please subscribe, share, like, and drop a review if you like what you heard.
And if you don't like it, you can cram it in your blank.
I'm not supposed to. All right, Mike, see you next week.
All right, bye, Tom.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won, a JTech audio production, copyright 2020. No part of this podcast may be reproduced by anyone without the express written consent of the creators. For more information or to contact us, please go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com. All right, Michael, what did you learn this week?
I have learned that it took me less than 10 episodes to find a favorite and least favorite game show.
I still think least favorite's going to be adjusted once we get into it a little further.
Maybe, maybe not. So far. I'll say so far.
All right, there it is. Well, I've learned that I've definitely been looking at some of these shows from the celebrity side of things as opposed to the, consumer side of things. And I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, well, you're such a big celebrity, Tom. That's absolutely your point of view.
Copyright 2020, a JTech audio production.